So morphology. Has anyone heard the term morphology before? Yeah. Would you be able to define it, or just kind of what? Meaning, great. It can be kind of, it's a meaning, yeah, and it's also different parts of words, right? So really looking at how different parts of words, you can put them together to help you communicate what you want to write in your sentence structure. Tessa, did you want to say something else, or was that about it? Okay,
yeah,
great.
so like the first time I heard the word morph was in the movie Terminator 2, right? Because it was made out of liquid metal, so it could do what? It could change.
There we go.
So what morphology is all about is changing words and knowing how and why and when to change them, right?
Great, yeah, great. Yeah. And it can be very simple words. Again, these are words that we use all the time, right? If we talk about health a lot, or being healthy. Okay, it really comes from heal, right? And then you can put the prefix un, and it could be unhealthy. But we don't have anything called unhealth or unhealth. So it's an interesting thing, too, to look at just how language works and how a lot of these rules and how words came about, a lot of social history. It's going back to the skills base. It's not as though we set this grammar base and that we memorize things, because language is always changing. And if we take that perspective, it becomes more interesting. If language itself becomes the object of study, then it's not just memorizing and either that you're smart or stupid because you speak well, what's considered well, or you don't speak considered well. It's really looking to see at what's going on in this language and how in the world did we get there and what is academic language about. So that is what I have spent a lot of time doing. And again, it's about word creation. And while we want morphology within academic writing and academic language, is because academic language has heavy, heavy morphological use. And what I'm proposing and trying to do with my students is to make them be morphologically aware. And just more word consciousness is kind of what we call it, It's just seeing a word and not just saying, okay, it's a verb, it's a noun, it's whatever, but it's what is it doing in this sentence? What is that verb, and how does that change the meaning of the sentence? How does that then help you express your idea, right? Because especially with academic writing, and what is so great about it, I believe, it gets to the depths of knowledge, becomes critical thinking. I think the world would be, I just have cable for the first time while I'm here, so I'm watching all those news shows, and just things that come out of people's mouth without really thinking about it. And you're write an academic paper about it first, and then let's discuss, because it really does make you think about, okay, what's the argument? What would be the counter argument? What would be, as opposed, so at any rate, I think it's worth doing. Okay, so again, these are some worksheets that I've come up with as a way, and I know this must be really hard to see, but as a way to take a word. You could just start a very simple word like heal, right? And point out, here's the prefixes, here's the root, the inflection, how it changes, and then how things change and how each thing becomes a different part of speech. So a noun, healer, health, healing, again, kind of a gerund there, or the healthiness, unhealthiness, verb, heal, heals, healed. The idea that the verb healed can be a verb, healed can also be an adjective, right? The healed, the girl healed herself. The healed girl was happy. It's an interesting thing. So instead of just learning that heal is a verb, saying heal, it can do a lot of different things in a sentence. And that's exciting and empowering, because then you can use it to convey your intended message. So that's that idea. Thing again with morphology, and again going back to, yeah, I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine. I may be going ahead of you, but
No,
we do that. We do a word study.
Yeah.
And then we always translate it in reading if they come across a word they don't understand. But
Yeah.
what I have struggles with is the writing, because then they continue to still use
Interesting.
the words that they're very familiar with, and they're not very they're not risk takers when it comes
Got
to
it.
using unfamiliar vocabulary, because we do words in context all the time. We break it apart. I purposely use words and quotes that we can break apart and talk about root words and prefixes and the morphing. I didn't know that's what I was doing, but now
Doing it.
so I'm morphing words. And I love the graphic organizer.
Yeah.
That's what we do, graphic organizers. But how do I get them to be risk takers and use that in their writing, because we can do it.
Right.
And then 5 seconds later, if we go to writing,
Yeah.
and it could be about the same thing. I usually pick a word, then pick a quote, and then they have to explain the quote. And the very narrative writing still.
Sure. Yeah, it's
I
writing
have
is
trouble
writing.
switching over to
Yeah,
the new
no,
GED.
it's writing is all.
But I don't know how to get them to.
So let me just clear. We were talking about a word as a high, an academic vocabulary word just in and of itself, or manipulating a word to use it in different contexts, or to use it as an adverb as opposed to an adjective.
I think both.
Both? Okay.
Because, again, they're very familiar with the language that they're used
Sure.
to, their own academic language.
Right.
And because I think writing is uncomfortable enough, trying to figure out,
Right.
I need to process. Figuring out what I want to write is
Yeah.
a very difficult task.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. It's a very difficult task. But now my instructor is telling me I have to use these new
Exactly.
words
Right.
in this writing.
Yeah.
So there's two cognitive
Exactly.
confusions going on.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's what we're going to work with you today. We're going to do some hands-on examples about how to perhaps do that. And then let's see, Claire, I saw yours. Yeah. Oh, Elaine,
Can I
I'm sorry,
just,
Elaine.
since I have the
Yeah, Bonnie. Oh, I'm sorry, sure.
That's okay, real quickly. Part of that, I think, what I've discovered is the spelling.
Okay.
It's really difficult for them. They can think the words, but to write them out, even if they've just seen it, to spell those words, and they get really anxious
Okay.
about writing a word that they can't spell.
Right.
And so they go back to, well, I don't know how to say discover, or write discover, but I could do find.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
they'll go back to that because it's an easier
Sure.
word for them to spell. I don't know if that has happened with you, or if that's part of it.
Okay, no, that's an interesting point, and this isn't particularly about spelling, but there are ways to use morphology to teach spelling rules in the way that, and to look at patterns and things like that, like when E changes to I and blah, blah, blah.